Some who have read the book, or at any rate have reviewed it, have found it boring, absurd, or contemptible. And I have no cause to complain, since I have similar opinions of their work or of the kinds of writing that they evidently prefer. J.R.R. Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review on AMI Audio. I'm Jacob Shamansky. Ramya Amuthan is with me also. Rams,
Hey.
do you recognize that quote from somewhere?
No. And the sad part is, do you know what I did the other day? I played Lord of the Rings, the first book, as a background white noise just so I could go to
What?
sleep because I know it's so tragic.
That is the most expensively produced white noise of all time. I mean, to be
It's
fair,
because
it is
I've
like
told
12 hours
you
with the extended edition.
I tried to read this book and I can't get into it, Jacob. You've tried to put me on fantasy so many times, and I think I'm getting better as I get older, but I need, so much more time than other people. Anyway.
Well, anyways, what I like
Anyways.
about that quote is that it's kind of one of J.R.R. Tolkien's very elegant slapdowns, basically telling people that don't like his book. Well, he doesn't like the books that they like either. And they don't like good reading anyways.
Oof.
It's
Like
kind
a
of savage,
personal
but
one.
there's a couple good disses in Lord of the Rings. Some of them are pretty memorable. But the reason I brought this quote up is because we wanted to talk about online resources that we use often, and reviews are a huge part of that. Because I don't know about you, Rams. I think a ton of people have fully embraced living chronically online.
Yep.
And I don't think you can live as a regular audiobook listener without engaging in online platforms and using online tools and that type of thing. And I thought that we should share some of the websites and apps and platforms that we use on the regular to not just get reviews,
Mhm.
but recommendations, discussions, summaries, explanations, debates, like that type of thing. There's so much you can find out there. There's
Yes.
something so satisfying in comparing my thoughts to a reviewer's thoughts on the same book that we read, because it gives you a different perspective. Sometimes I kind of treat it as like a way to convince me of things that I'm not sure of yet, like how I feel about a certain character. And then after I read that review, I go, huh, I guess that character was kind of a jerk after all. Oh, I guess that character was actually absolutely in the right in this case. And it feels like it completes the experience of listening to a book.
Okay, that's
Hmm.
fair and relatable. My
Hmm.
question to you then, follow up, is do you wait to read other people's reviews? Like, do you wait to form a full opinion on your own internally and just with you in the book before going deep diving into other people's thoughts and opinions? Or are you like not afraid of getting influenced by other people's remarks?
I'm
Because
not
you can't
afraid of being
avoid it.
influenced. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not afraid of it because yeah, like you said, there's no avoiding being influenced by other people's remarks. The only way that would happen was if you don't listen to anybody ever, and then you
Hmm.
just become a hermit, right? Like, and I think if you take in more people's opinions and perspectives on books, it feels like you get a more complete picture of the story. Like you understand it better in a way. I don't think that our individual interpretations of any given book is correct. It would be really arrogant to think that.
I guess that's fair. My real thought is like
Hmm.
around that question was you can't necessarily avoid having people's opinions and perspectives and spoilers and
No.
all this other stuff thrown at you because like you said, everything is online and you don't have to go so far to look for anything, honestly. Like you don't even have to go for a specific web page or resource like Goodreads. You could just find people's thoughts and opinions all over the place, and sometimes that recommendation that it comes to you comes with that, like the recommendation already comes with the full-fledged opinion of somebody else's, like you got to read this because dot dot dot. I've told you in the past how I've gotten influenced by like a TikTok video, and the TikTok video is just some guy going, "You got to read this. It's amazing. It'll change your life." I have no idea what this book is about at
And that's
all,
it.
other than
That's
the title,
all
and
you
that's
get.
it. That's all I get. And I swear, I downloaded a book off Audible yesterday, called Big Little, for this exact, or like in this exact same kind of influence. So
I think you're I think you're missing
I'm
out on something
impressionable.
here.
Am
Yeah, no,
I?
like
What?
I think you have so many tools at your disposal to get more catered recommendations that you shouldn't let yourself give your precious time to a book that somebody did not give their time to accurately recommend to you. Right? If somebody just says you need to read it
Yeah.
because it's good, like take 5 minutes and use some of the tools that I'm going to be listing today to find something that's more accurate to you and accurate to what you're looking to get into. Because something I wanted to do today is just share some of these resources. And I have a little list, and I don't know if you have a little list here, but I don't know how you want to do this. You want to go one after another?
Yeah, no, okay, you go and then I'll give you my opinion and then we'll see what's on your
Okay.
list. Okay, go.
Okay, perfect. Let's go first. First one that I use all the time is Goodreads. It's kind of like a
Of
social
course.
media for books and audiobooks, where what people use it most for is for tracking the books that you read. So after every book you finish, you go on there, you look it up, and then you give it a star rating, 1 out of 5. And every book has a page where you can see all sorts of reviews, quotes, discussions, questions, that type of thing. And when I say there's a lot of reviews, I mean like some popular books have thousands of user reviews, and I really enjoy that you can sort them in star ratings. So Rams, say you really hated a book, and you're like, "What the hell is the appeal?" You, what you can do. Ramya just stepped away, but I'm still going to continue explaining. I'll assume that she's still there. What you can do, Rams,
I'm
can you hear
back.
me? This one too.
Yes.
Okay. What I
Okay.
was saying was that when you go on Goodreads and you give a review, okay, say you really hated a book and you want to know why the hell did people like this book. You can go in there and you can sort the reviews by like 5-star reviews only, and then
Mhm.
see what do people who love this book say about it. And then you can do the other way around too, where if you loved a book, you're gonna be like, who could hate this? Like, it's
I've never
it's
done
so
it
much
that
fun.
deep.
It's so fun to read 1-star
Okay.
reviews.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I do the same thing. My favorite hobby is doing this with Google reviews, but I've never done it with a book. Now, obviously, Goodreads is one of like the most popular ways to review, right? Like Goodreads is, like you said, it's a social media kind of vibe where the comment section is large, but then you also have like the get to know the author section. It's kind of just whatever you need on a book. You can pull quotes that people have highlighted off of books. There's everything you can do
It's all
on Goodreads.
accessible too.
Yeah, it's all very accessible, you're right, and I think, like, Amazon's getting more and more, the clout for Goodreads, and they're just understanding the kind of scope they have with it, but, do you spend a lot of times just sorting through reviews and flipping back and forth?
I read a lot of reviews on Goodreads. Not that
Mhm,
they're all good, but sometimes reading trash is really funny. One thing, one thing I notice on Goodreads sometimes is people misunderstand books. They'll complain about something in a book, like this part doesn't make any sense, and I just
mm,
finished that book, and I know damn well that yes, that makes perfect sense. It's actually explained right in the book, so it tells you a few things. One, that people aren't exactly the most media literate, and that you can't
sure.
trust everyone who speaks confidently on a topic.
But how about, the way that it's laid out for commentary? Like, can you reply to other
Yes,
people's reviews? Okay, so it's
you
like
can
Reddit.
reply. Exact. Yeah, it's actually very similar to that, where the top comment would be the review, and then there's more
Yeah,
comments below that review. And some people give
yeah.
very extensive reviews. And another really cool feature is that it's very popular amongst authors. So you might see popular authors giving a full fledged review of another author's book.
True. Yeah. Yeah, and those kinds of things you can find, like, just from the overview of a book, right? Like, how active the author is on Reddit and things like that, so it feels very community. Do you find that, because obviously you use Goodreads for like much more than I do, but do you find that it's a positive back and forth, like flow of commentary and responses, or does it get really ugly?
It can get ugly, specifically during controversial nonfiction books for the most part.
Oh, really? I would have assumed
Yeah,
fantasy and like the most popular stuff gets ugly.
it gets ugly when it's controversial.
Okay.
Because I think naturally book readers tend to be very opinionated because everybody thinks they're well read and therefore their opinions are more intelligent. And so nobody wants to back down
We do it here
ever.
on the show, no? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cool.
But it's like anywhere on the internet. You get good conversation, you get back on a conversation, but more often
Yeah.
than not, it's you need to sort through the crap, right? Like it
Mm.
doesn't take long to realize that, oh, this is probably a 12-year-old who wrote this.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
It's
you
like
mentioned
anywhere. Yeah.
gave me heck about like how I'm doing it a disservice because people like I'm taking recommendations from people who don't even put in the time off their cute little TikTok shorts. But do you find the same thing with Goodreads? Like, are you looking for deep dive commentary, or do you really care what you get on Goodreads?
Mm, I do like deep dive commentary. Especially after having read a book. So, like before reading a book, I will read reviews because people
Yeah.
typically stay spoiler free on reviews just to know what to expect. Right. Like, and this is a bit of a hot take of mine, but I think you should know what you're getting yourself into, which is why I can't relate with you, Rams. How can you just
That's I'm
hear
no.
one
Yeah.
sentence and be convinced?
Yeah,
Because, like,
100%.
the sentence that comes after the first one could be a huge turnoff for you, right? What if he tells you, oh, it's in a fantasy setting? Oh,
Yes.
never mind. You wouldn't pick it up. Like, you want to know everything you need to know about this book before you pick it up because it's such a time commitment.
I get it, but I don't know. I think that you're just like more I want to say academic, but that's not necessarily
I
the right
like
word,
that.
but
Yeah.
but
Academic. I
you know what
like
I
that.
mean? Yeah, right? Like you just kind of know what you you kind of know what you'll spend time reading. You read so much that you're like, "Ah, I can't be bothered." You're not going to just like look at the synopsis and be like, "Oh, that's intriguing." You actually know if you want to read it or not. I am on the other end of the spectrum. I'm like, if you presented it well to me and you did it in 10 seconds and you left me on a complete like unknown of what this book could be, but it just sounds fascinating because you presented it that way, I'm down. Now, granted, I will read, 30 minutes to an hour and a half of the book and then just toss it, right? You're more of the completionist as well. I think you and Amr can relate to that side of things. Like, you don't necessarily pick up books and then
Mm.
stop 10% in. You're more likely to finish a book. And maybe that has direct correlation with how you go into the book. But for me, like, I'm willing to toss all the books. Like, my goodness, my CELA library just is a mess. Like, there's no organization. I could have read 50% of those books and there's still so much in there. But I'm willing to take it at face value. Interesting.
Where do I remember hearing about the concept of coming to terms with an author, and that typically
Yeah.
applies in a nonfiction context. And all it means is understanding what the author is trying to do. So if
Okay.
you're reading a book and you misunderstand what the author is trying to do, you're going to misinterpret the book from the start. Um, I'm trying to come up with an example here. Um, Say you pick up a book and you think it's an instructional guide on how to raise beehives, but
Okay.
that's not what the author's trying to do. Maybe it's a satire, but you'd never pick up that it's satire because you didn't read the whole synopsis or reviews or something. There's so many situations
Are
like
you
that where you
saying
can
that
be
this is what
completely
I
led
end up
astray.
Are you trying to
Yes.
say something right now? No, absolutely not. Oh, come on. I'm still well read. Like I I can go into something and tell if it's about a beehive or if it's satire.
It's all
Give
an
me some
allegory.
credit. Oh no. No
Okay,
wonder
but
the comment section's so
But I
bleak.
do want to talk about recommendations generally because we've been touching on reviews quite a bit. And
Yeah.
when it comes to reviews, I get them mostly from Goodreads and YouTube. If you type in practically any book
No
ever, you will find
way.
some YouTuber with like 20
That's just
views
long version of
reviewing this thing
TikTok and Instagram shorts.
everywhere.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding
but
me?
you can only say so much in 2 minutes, right? Like an
That's the
author
point.
writes
How long are you gonna
thousands and
recommend
thousands of
me a book?
words.
Okay, get out of here. How long has give me an average YouTube video length that you've seen of somebody recommending a book?
Recommend. Oh, I'm talking about reviews here.
Oh, now you're
Generally,
talking about
book
reviews? I thought
reviews.
you were
Yeah, yeah.
recommending. Okay.
Generally,
Yeah,
book
reviews fine.
reviews will be about like 10 to 15 minutes, which is long. I know it's
Yeah.
long, but just like do it when you're cooking. I don't know. Like okay, let's move on to recommendations though.
Okay.
Because this is something I don't know what you're gonna think of this. Of course, it involves AI. Using AI for recommendations because you could be extremely specific. Now, the
Mm,
first AI that comes to mind obviously is ChatGPT, but it's not connected to the internet. And I
sure.
think its knowledge base starts in like the cutoff is what, early 2023 or something like that. So
2020.
it's not
Yeah.
exactly up to date. There are websites and models that use ChatGPT that have access to the internet. And in those cases, you can ask it book recommendations and be extremely specific. And Rams, you said that you really don't like fantasy, and it's always irked me. And I know that you don't like YA.
I just don't have
So
imagination. Sorry.
I came up
YA,
with
we're not gonna go
this.
there. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, but listen, we're not going to go there exactly. But I came up with a prompt for an AI model called Perplexity AI, which can
Okay.
scour the web for you using ChatGPT's model. And
Nice.
here's the prompt I gave it: give me 5 book recommendations for someone who's typically not a reader of fantasy, but looking for a book to serve as a gateway into fantasy.
Oh,
Ideally, it should be a
nice.
standalone novel. Ideally, it should be a standalone novel that's light on the fantasy elements and features great prose and writing. No YA, please.
Wow. Impressive.
Here's its
Impressive
response. Yeah.
prompt, first of all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what you got to do. You got to be specific with the prompts. Here's the response. Here are 5 standalone fantasy novels that are excellent gateway novels that are for people who are typically not inclined towards the genre.
Okay.
Here are 5 recommendations. 1, The Night Circus by Aaron Morgenstern. This enchanting novel revolves around a magical competition between 2 young illusionists set in a mysterious circus that appears only at night. The narrative
I
is rich
loved
with
the last.
beautiful prose.
Oh my gosh. Aaron Morgenstern. I already have good experience reading their book. I can't remember the name. Oh,
See,
you know what Starless Sea. That was the book. That was great. Okay.
well, there you go. That seems pretty personalized to you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you intrigued to
How
get into
did it
fantasy like that?
go?
There
Yeah, I
you
mean
go.
gateway, right? Like Harry Potter's pretty gateway if you ask me. And then mhm.
Harry Potter is low fantasy though, in that
I
it takes
know.
place in this
Yeah,
universe. It's quite a
exactly.
bit of a jump to get into high fantasy like Lord of the Rings or A Song of Ice and Fire or something.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
point
so I
is,
need to like tippy toe in.
exactly, there are 4 more recommendations here that I can forward for you. But
All
I want
right,
to get
thanks.
to other things. Like you can be really, really, really specific. Like the other day, I looked up find me books about disability by Canadian authors that published in the last 2 months. And I got
Nice.
a bunch of books that actually correlated to that, including links to the pages. Like, do you see the value here? You
Oh,
can
I
use
absolutely see
AI,
the value, but
right? It's
I
incredible.
to challenge you because I'm thinking, like, you're not gonna take a TikTok video recommendation from a real dude or gal who read a book and, isn't able to, like, scour the web and give us, like, a general scope of what you may or may not like. So it's not a personalized recommendation, but it's a recommendation from the heart. And this is like, let me curate a list for you based on the data that you've given me that I'm now scouting the web for um other people's recommendations or reviews of things. So isn't it kind of the flip side of the same coin?
When you put
Do
it
you
that
feel
way, it
like
makes you
one
sound
yeah,
pretty impersonal. Like,
I mean it
it,
is. It is quite impersonal.
who
All it's
cares though?
doing
What's the
well,
problem? Like,
that's what I said about the TikTok. So who cares in the sense that like, okay, this is great for just like giving anybody any recommendation of any kind. It's just gonna grab it for you, right? And then, but it's not necessarily, you don't know if these books are good or not. Like, I know that this falls under the gateway fantasy book recommendation according to, I don't know, a bunch of other stuff that it found on the web, the circus book, right? But we don't know if it's good or not. Now, if you told me to go read this book because you think I would like it, is that not
Mm.
more valuable?
Yeah, are you saying that that type of recommendation just has more weight because it comes from a human person that actually read the book? Because you make a good
That
point
read
here that
the Yeah, that read the
the
book.
AI didn't read the book. It didn't tell me,
AI did
"Oh
not read
yeah,
the book.
this Aaron Morgenstern book is great. I read it. It's awesome. I cried."
Yeah,
Like, no, it did not do that. It's
it
basically
did
just
not.
basing itself on other reviews. So it's not like
Exactly. And
wrong
it's
in
kind
that
of
sense. It's just a
averaging it
compilation.
out, or it's doing whatever it's doing in its algorithm to figure out what it thinks you're asking for, like what it thinks is the answer to what you're asking for. But it's not, like you said, it's not a real human being. I love AI because it can give you good starting points. Like you said, you want Canadian authors writing disability books, go to AI because you'll get a faster um, result or
You're
more
listening
recommendations.
to AMI audio, book review on AMI audio. I'm Jacob Shamansky. I'm talking to Ramya Amuthan about the different online resources we use to supplement and enhance our audiobook listening experience. But Rams, something about using AI for recommendations that I think you should consider is that we can be more mindful about what we read. Do you
Mm-hmm.
ever find yourself trapped in certain genres, like reading a lot of nonfiction,
Definitely.
or you read yeah, you could
Pigeonholed, yeah.
yeah, you can use it to dig yourself out of that pigeonhole. Like give me an example of a genre that you've been stuck in recently.
Oh, recently I've been stuck into a lot of like psych stuff, like psychology, or it's not necessarily self-development, but it's like breakdowns of psych. And I get this ends up being like a thing for me in books, in videos, in articles, and then I can't like unravel out of it. So how do you how would you say AI could help with that? Because you're not trying to jump, right?
I
You're not
mean,
trying to jump
you
from
could
one into
jump.
the other completely. I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, so you like a transitional recommendation, that type
Mhm.
of thing. Like, say you wanted to read
Potentially.
more fiction, more let's say thrillers, right? You can say
Mhm.
something like, "Hi, I'm Ramya Amuthan, and I've been stuck reading a lot of psychological books and nonfiction about human psychology, and I'm deeply interested in that, but I feel like I'm stuck in this pigeonhole. Could you please recommend me a book that involves this type of topic but is set in a thriller fiction type
Nice.
of story?
That's so good.
Give me
You should
five
do a
recommendations."
segment on this on AMI today. How
How,
to
how
properly prompt your AI.
it can be very specific, and sometimes you just need to change the wording a little bit to get what
Mhm.
you want. But all that to say is that you can use it to be extremely specific to find things that you're looking for. Like
Yeah.
I've been what I really don't like in fantasy is it always seems to be in a big series, like 5 or 6 books, and I can't commit that type of time
Yeah.
anymore. So you ask for standalone books. Find me very well regarded fantasy books that exist in a standalone format.
Do you
Just a
question
single
it?
book.
Do you
Do
question, like, do you follow up with the recommendations and say, "Who said what about this?" Or, like, "What about the recommendations makes it a good whatever place to start for me?" Or you know what I mean? Do you
I
challenge the AI?
should I
Oh,
should I
totally.
as in question its sources, as in say
Yeah,
like
question its sources.
why are you recommending me this
Yeah, why you
specifically? Like,
recommend me, or who said what about it, or what did people say
mhm,
about this aspect of it, like character development or whatever, because
mhm.
you do that anyway, right? Like you go through the reviews on Goodreads and just deep dive. I mean, you said you do it post reading mostly, but still.
I do both, but
Mm,
light review reading pre-book and then reading quite a few
there you go.
reviews after the book
Yeah.
because like I said at the opening, like it feels like it completes the reading process to me. L-
Does it sound like we're just recommending people to go to AI for everything? I feel like we might be doing that.
I feel like AI is recommending everyone to go to AI
Yeah, well, yeah. Now we're
because it's
vouching for that
I don't
approach.
know. I think when it comes to AI, when it comes to AI, I think you need to be up to date with it. You don't want to be left in the dust and not know how to use it, where everybody around you is
Yeah.
they actually know how to use it. I I get stupid prompts all the time, like and stupid responses constantly.
Hmm.
It's you
Yeah,
just
because
have to
it's
use
like
it. Yeah.
I worry about, not worry necessarily, but I'm cognizant about like the biases when it comes to, give me a good standalone fantasy recommendation, like your prompt, right? That you gave to it.
Yeah.
Um and then it just going into what it would consider classic or most popular. And maybe you're looking for something more diverse or modern. Or maybe you're looking for something written with a female lead or whatever, and you have to be specific about that because it's not gonna assume any of it.
It what it can do, and from what I understand, when it makes lists like this, it basically does multiple rounds of like fact checking itself. So if you ask for give me 5 fantasy books that have a female lead, it's gonna find you 5 fantasy books and
Hmm.
then go through them and like do basically Google searches on each of them to find out if they have a female lead. And if they don't, they'll like replace that book out of the list. So there's like multiple
Right.
pass throughs. It's
Yeah.
it does make mistakes though. Like I know it's recommending me books that are like explicitly not fantasy and I'm like number 9 is incorrect. That's not a fantasy book and it just like relents and goes, "Oops, I'm sorry. Here's a different one."
Yeah, like what? There's no there's no explanation. Like, I'm giving you 10 fantasy books, but 8 of them might be wrong.
Mhm,
And it's because, and I'm not an expert, but I'm just saying it, part of it I think is because like we know that it's just sorting through whatever it finds on the web, right? Or whatever
mhm.
resource. It's not just sorting through peer reviewed. So you're going to get like all the recommendations and reviews and comments that people have written online and like whatever, just the whole pile, and AI kind of utilizing every end of that. So you're not always going to get the best results. You got to question it.
No. You have to question everything though. Even if it comes
I
from a
mean,
person.
fair. Not unless it's just a 2-minute TikTok video. You don't have to question that. You just take it for face value, go and read the book, and then if you don't like it, toss it. And go
When you
back to
see a
my
TikTok video like that, it might as well just be, "Here's a book, thumbs up," and you go, "Yeah, let's
yeah.
read it."
Yeah, but the way that they thumbs it up though, it's the
Oh,
finesse.
right, yeah, yeah. It's dexterous and charismatic. Yeah, I see how it is.
Exactly.
One more, one more online resource that you can use is didthedogdie.com. Sorry,
What?
doesthedogdie.com. It's a
Oh,
trigger warning website. You ever heard of this one?
yeah, no, you talked about it. You talked about it. Yeah.
I'll talk about it again. It's a website where you can look up books and if they have different trigger warnings associated to them. And you can do a search,
Mhm.
which is basically like if you're very sensitive to eating disorders or something like that, you can type in Harry Potter and the Half Blood Prince eating disorders, and it'll just say no. It's very simple, but I know
Is
it's
it
very
that
useful to a lot of
simple?
people.
Is it that
No,
simple, or
the
will it go into like caveat, caveat, caveat?
no caveats. It's actually very simple. It just gives you a
Okay.
very basic yes or no answer. In some cases, it'll actually give you like the page that it happens on, but note that everything is user submitted. But I this question of um trigger warnings is a bit controversial nowadays, but you see them increasingly. And if you're interested in just being more aware of what you're reading, this could be really
Oh
useful
man.
for you.
Animals is a big one, right? Like people do not want to go through 80% of a book and then find out something horrible happens to an animal. So stuff
Yeah,
like this is
exactly.
very useful. Yeah.
One thing we should definitely shout out to, and we will always shout it out, is CELA, the Center for Equitable
Sela.
Library Access. It's basically where Ramya and I get all our books at this point. If you're blind or low vision in Canada and you are registered with the CNIB, you can gain free access to their library, and they have a beautiful accessible website. You can go on there and access a huge library of books in titles, and then you can import it into I use the app Voice Stream Reader on iOS. I think you use Easy Reader, right, Rams?
I use Easy Reader. Yeah.
But there are other options too, but those are two of the popular ones. And you can also get books on Android as well. Another cool thing that Sela can do is you can actually request books to be added to their library. They have that power and they have that feature on the website. Rams,
Hmm.
thanks so much. We're pretty much all out of time, but you've given me a lot to think about. Maybe I really overthink all my book recommendations. I hope I
I
didn't sound a
just
little too
just
preachy in
do
this.
it. Just go to Book Talk or Instagram Shorts and just tell me. Just pick up a random book and we'll go from there. Gotta start somewhere, Jacob.
Sweet and to the point. I guess you don't need to overthink it. I like that you call me academic, though. You made my day.
That
Thanks
was
so
a
much.
good. It was in quotations. We don't know if we've come down to that
Gotcha.
term.
Rams, see ya. Have a good one.
Later.
That was Ramya Amuthan of Kelly and Company. And that's all the time we have for AMI Audio Book Review. Remember, you can find a repeat of AMI Today on AMI Audio every 8 hours. We're live at 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday on AMI Audio. But if you miss it, you can catch the repeat at 7 p.m. or 3 a.m. on AMI Audio. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube. I'm your host, Jacob Szymanski. Have a good one.